Hello students, welcome to my channel D Biology. In this video, we'll be discussing about the structure of the seed. But before starting the structure, we need to have the knowledge about the structure of the carpel, that is the female reproductive structure. I have already discussed the carpel in my last video that was about the complete parts of the flower. So if you haven't watched them yet, do watch it. The link will be given in the description box. And now we'll study
Guys, we
carpel.
know that a carpel consists of three parts. That is, first one is stigma. Then the stigma opens into tube-like structure that is named as style. And this style is going to open into a broad, this oval-shaped structure that is known as ovary. So this broad oval-shaped structure is actually the ovary, which is present basically on the thalamus. I'll draw the thalamus also so that you will understand what I'm talking about. This is the thalamus on which the ovary is present like this. Clear? Now, let's label these parts first before we move forward. So this is stigma. This is stigma. Then we have the style. And then the third part is ovary. This is all basic we know. Now remember, this thickened part or the outer layer of the ovary, this is known as ovary wall. Clear? And this is what? This is the thalamus. This ovary is present on the thalamus. Now remember one point which is important for exams. The ovary, when fertilization is done, it will convert into fruit. Remember, only gymnosperms have only angiosperms have ovary. Up to gymnosperms, ovaries are not there. So, no fruit formation. The wall of the ovary will form the fruit wall, right? Fruit wall, and it is given a particular term that is known as pericard. Pericard. This is again one important point, guys. What is pericard? A number of times questions are asked in different exams regarding this term. Clear? Now we'll move forward and we'll draw now the inner structure of the ovary, which we have already discussed. Now, here on the thalamus, a stalk-shaped structure is there. The stalk-shaped structure is actually known as funiculus or funicle. Clear? Now, here on the stalk-shaped structure, there is present the ovule. So, ovule is present here on this stalk-shaped structure. So, this is the ovule. Now, what is happening here, guys? We need to remember a few terms over here. That is the point where funicle attaches to the ovule. This point is known as hilum. We get to see hilum in the seeds also. I'll show an example here in the form of diagram. Now, the point where the funicle attaches to the ovary or to the thalamus, this point is known as the placenta. What is the function of placenta? It is same as what we have in the humans. It is to provide nutrition to the developing embryo in this ovule. Now, we need to study the structure of the ovule, which is very important for your exams point of view. So, this ovule is going to have two walls or two layers like this. Clear? And on this side also it is going to have the layer like this. Then again, this one is the outer layer. This is outer. And this one is, let's say, the inner one. Now, these two layers are together known as integuments. What they are known as? They are known as integuments, outer integument and inner integument. Now, these integuments are absent at a point here on the ovule. This point where the integuments are absent, it is known as micropyle. It is known as micropyle, and the point just opposite to the micropyle, this one is known as the chaliza. Positions terms are very important, so do remember them. Chaliza, micropyle. Now, what is happening? This ovule has a number of diploid cells which are completely known as nucellus. So this is all the nucellus. This complete is nucellus, guys. Clear? Now, this is all what? This is all nucellus. Now, what is happening? Basically, this cell of the ovule, one of the cell of the ovule becomes the megaspore mother cell, and after becoming the megaspore mother cell, it forms the megaspore. Now, this megaspore, which is formed from the megaspore mother cell, I'll tell you how it is forming. I'll just show on the outer side of this. So this is one, we can say the ovule. In this ovule, so many cells are there. Out of these all cells, one of the cell becomes the megaspore mother cell. Means she will be forming the megaspores. Now, in this megaspore mother cell, which is a diploid cell 2N, meiosis will take place. Meiosis occurs, and by the help of meiosis, what is forming? Megaspores are formed. Megaspores are formed, and these megaspores are haploid structures. Now, we know that from a single cell, by meiosis, how many cells are formed? 4 cells. 1, 2, 3, 4. But in case of females, out of 4, the 3 dies off. Like this one will die, this one will die, and this one will die. So as a result, they just produce one functional megaspore, and this functional megaspore is going to form the embryo sac completely. Clear? So this is one megaspore which is going to form the embryo sac. Out of the 4, only one remains functional. The rest of the 3 will degenerate, will die. The reason, because megaspores are large in size and they require nutrition. So to provide nutrition to the developing megaspore, the remaining 3 cells will die. So this is again one important point which you need to remember, guys. Definitely a number of times questions are asked that why the cells formed by the meiosis do not survive. Out of 4, only 1 is functional. So the reason is because they need to provide nutrition to the developing embryo. So this is one functional megaspore, and this functional megaspore is now going to divide. It is now going to form the embryo sac, and I'll show you how. Now, when it is going to develop, it will just take the space of this nucellus. It is going to take the place of this nucellus like this. Clear? So almost all nucellus will be used, and what we will get an embryo sac over here. Wait. We will get an embryo sac which has occupied almost complete space of this ovule. Clear? Now, one point is important, that how the divisions of the cells in this embryo sac takes place. So remember, this is one megaspore which is going to form the embryo sac. This megaspore will divide only its nucleus. It will not divide its cell membrane or cell wall. Cytokinesis will not occur, only karyokinesis will take place. Now, after this division, this is a mitosis division, not meiosis. Meiosis is already done. After this mitosis division, again mitosis will occur, and this one nucleus will form two nucleus each. Again, each nucleus is going to have this mitosis division, and from this mitosis division, what is going to happen? Total 8 nucleus will be formed. Now, as you can see, I have paired these nucleus because there is a reason. These two nucleus will form how many nucleus in total? 4. These two nucleus will divide to form how many nucleus? 4. Now, all these 4 nucleus will just send one of their nucleus in the center, and these 4 will also send one of them in the center like this. Clear? The remaining 3 will remain at the polar sites respectively, and those which are present on the micropyle, one of them will become enlarged to form the egg cell. What it is going to form? It is going to form the egg cell. It is larger in size as compared to the 2 cells which are present near it. These small cells with finger-like projections are known as synergids. So, as you can see, synergids are present on which side? Synergids are present on the side of micropyle. Synergids. Egg cell plus synergids together are known as egg apparatus. Clear? Now, what about the remaining those 3 cells? So yes, they also have some function. I'll show you what. So guys, these cells which are present towards the chalaza, means these nuclei, they will also form cells, that is 3 cells are found on the chalaza side. All these 3 cells are equal in size, and these cells are known as antipodals. Antipodals. Now, these 2 nuclei which were left in the center, they do not form any cell, and they remain in the central large cell, hence called as polar nuclei. What they are called as? They are called as polar nuclei. They will be present like this, and these will be known as polar nuclei. Clear? So this is one complete embryo sac which is going to have one egg apparatus which consists of one egg cell and 2 synergids. These synergids have these finger-like projections, these which I drew like this. These are the finger-like projections, and these finger-like projections actually gives the direction. They invite the pollen tubes into the synergids. Now, these egg apparatus is present on the side of the micropyle, whereas on the side of chalaza, 3 antipodal cells are present. How many cells? 3 antipodal cells. So 1 egg cell, 2 synergids, 3 antipodal cells. Total how many are done? 6 cells are done. And the 7th cell is this complete embryo sac in which the 2 polar nuclei are present. So we can say that one carpel will usually have 7 cells. But how many nucleus are there? 8. 8 nucleated embryo sac. Clear? This is one important point. Students do get confused between 7, 8 nucleated or cell. So remember, 7 cells are there. You can count on your fingers. 1 egg cell, 2 synergids, 3 antipodals, total 6, plus 1 main or larger cell, that is total 7 cells are there. Counting the nucleus, 1 nucleus of egg cell plus 2 nucleus of synergids plus 3 nucleus of antipodals plus 2 polar nuclei. So total 8 nucleus are present. Now, this is the complete structure of the carpel, all the parts I have mentioned. Now I want you to take the screenshot so that I can proceed further. Okay, I'll remove the parts which I don't want now for my explanation. So I'm going to remove this part, and I'll remove this part because I've already told how these cells are basically formed. You'll be studying this again in your 12th chapter number 2. I'll keep this part as this is important. Now what happens? For fertilization, what is required? We know that for fertilization, pollen grains are required. This pollen grain develops the pollen tube, right? The pollen tube take nourishments from the stigma and style of the carpel, and by taking nourishment it grows like this. Means I'm making partition, it's actually not partition, I'm just showing how it grows. So I'll now draw the completely grown part or completely grown pollen tube, right? So this was the pollen grain and it had this pollen tube form like this. Clear? Now this pollen tube, when it passes through the style, it reaches to the micropyle. It can enter into the embryo sac either through micropyle or through integuments or through chaliza. And after entering the ovule, it has to enter into the embryo sac and it enters through one of the synergids. These finger-like projections of the synergids just invite the pollen tube, and pollen tube carries its two male gametes within it, and they transfer them into the embryo sac. The synergids get degenerated. Now comes one important point. When pollen tube enters into the synergid will get degenerated. And what happens? Now let's see when degeneration is done. Completely it is removed. Wait. Yeah, because we need this part. Okay, so I'll keep this over here only, I'll not remove it. So when the synergid is gone, this one will be also removed. The another synergid, it will be also removed. This one. Okay, synergids will degenerate when the pollen tube has released its male gametes into the embryo sac. So these are the two male gametes, the green colored structures. Okay, I'm going to draw some structure like this filamentous structure to show that these are the male gametes. Now, one of the two male gametes will get a chance to fertilize the egg cell, whereas the another one is going to meet the polar nuclei. This is one important point. Two male gametes are released by pollen tube. Out of two, one will go to egg cell and the other one will go to polar nuclei. Clear? Now, what about these antipodals? What is their function? So remember, antipodals will also degenerate with time. They also don't have any function. So when we have degenerated synergids, let me degenerate these antipodals also. So antipodals are not at all required. They are just a supplementary structure, we can say. Useless structures. Okay, now what happens? When polar nuclei, means two polar nuclei are there, haploid plus haploid. Again, one male gamete is going to fuse with these polar nuclei. So what sort of structure is formed? N plus N plus N, 3N. So remember, by this fusion of this polar nuclei and the male gamete, a nucleated structure, a triploid structure is formed, which is known as PEN. Primary endosperm nucleus is formed when polar nuclei fuses with the male gamete, whereas the male gamete when fuses with the egg cell, means one egg cell haploid plus one male gamete haploid, they are going to form the zygote, which will be a diploid structure. Clear? This zygote is going to form the embryo. Clear? So what happens when the male gamete fuses with the egg cell? It is going to form the zygote, this one, and PEN is formed. Now what is the thing? What is the function of these primary endosperm nucleus? What is the function of the embryo? Let me tell you that. So it's all hodgepodge. So I'll just clear some of the parts over here so that it will be easily visible. Okay. So guys, basically what is happening, this was the zygote and zygote forms the embryo. Now what happens, the embryo is actually the next generation of that particular plant. This embryo is what? It is the next generation, right? Now to grow this next generation embryo, food is required. This embryo which is present here is going to take nutrition from this primary endosperm nucleus. How everything is happening, I'll show you now on the next part, because here it is completely confusing. So I'll just remove this all and I'll redraw the necessary parts. Okay, so this was the ovule, and inside the ovule embryo sac was there. This was the embryo sac. In this embryo sac, what was happening? We had one zygote. This is the zygote. And we had one primary endosperm nucleus, PEN. Right? Now, what you need to know is that the zygote takes nutrition from PEN, primary endosperm nucleus. So, who is going to develop first? The first development takes place of PEN, because when PEN is completely developed, then only the zygote will get the nutrition, right? So what happens? This PEN will first divide its nucleus and then will divide in the cellular division, making the PEN expanded or forming the endosperm. It is going to form the endosperm like this. Okay, occupying the complete space of this embryo sac. Now, once this endosperm has started developing, the zygote will now use the nutrition of this embryo sac, of this endosperm, and is going to increase its number of cells, forming a embryo. Clear? So slowly and slowly what is happening, as you can see, the zygote is actually overtaking the positions of the endosperm like this. Now, the zygote will either consume the endosperm completely, forming non-endospermic seeds. Non-endospermic seeds. Or they will not consume the endosperm completely, forming endospermic seeds. Forming endospermic seeds. Now, what is the difference between two? And what are the examples of these endospermic and non-endospermic? Very simple. Dicots. Remember, dicots had two cotyledons, and this was the embryonal axis, right? This is one cotyledon, this is second cotyledon. Whereas coming to the monocots, they just have one cotyledon. So this is the embryonal axis, and near to the embryonal axis, they will have this one cotyledon, which is named as scutellum. Clear? This is just one cotyledon in monocots, and this is two cotyledons in dicots. Those who have more cotyledons, they won't need endosperm for nutrition. So they will use their complete endosperm and form non-endospermic seeds. So non-endospermic seeds are seen in dicots. Whereas coming to monocots, since they have just one cotyledon, they will keep endosperm persistent in their seed and they are going to form the endospermic seeds. So endospermic seeds are found in monocots. Very easy to remember, right? Now, further about these two seeds or the complete embryo of the monocots and dicots we'll discuss soon. But let's finish with this part regarding the zygote to embryo formation and the use of endosperm. Clear? Now, sometimes, not always, some of the part of the nucellus remains intact. Nucellus persistent means it is not completely removed after the embryo formation, and this is known as perisperm. This is known as perisperm. Remember, pericarp was the wall of the fruit. Perisperm is persistent nucellus. Students do get confused between two. Now, we had two integuments. If you remember, we had two integuments on this nucellus, the outer integument and the inner integument. So, I'm not drawing the integuments again. I'll just mention their name and tell you what parts they are converting into. Outer integument, which was the outer layer of the ovule, it will form the outer layer of the seed coat. This was the outer layer of ovule and it is going to form outer layer of the seed coat that is known as testa. Testa is outer seed coat because ovule is converting into seed. So integuments will convert into seed coat and outer seed coat is known as testa, whereas inner integument is known as tegmen. Clear? So when the seeds are formed, testa and tegmen are the two seed coats of the seed. Now, this is how the seed formation takes place now. Inside the seed, embryo is developing. So a single zygote will have a number of divisions forming different shapes of the embryo. What happens? This first forms a globular structure like this. Okay, a number of cells are there forming the globular structure. From this globular structure, it forms a heart-shaped structure like this. From this heart-shaped structure, it forms the structure with two cotyledons like this. Now, this is one stage, that is torpedo stage, found in the dicots, whereas in monocots one cotyledon is seen. So now let's see the two seeds of formed in monocots and dicots. Now the first one we have is of dicots. Clear? Now here what you can see, these are the two cotyledons, they will have the stored food completely in them. This is all stored food they are having, which will be provided to the developing embryo. Now, this is complete embryonal axis. We know that this upper part is known as plumule, which is going to give birth to the shoot, whereas the lower one is known as radicle and it is going to form the root system. Right? We have already discussed this seed or this zygote seed. Now, this is one seed of gram. Remember micropyle, the point or opening where integuments were absent. Then we have is this hilum. Hilum is also seen in the case of seeds because it is just a mark on the seeds. Seeds are matured ovules and those ovules will have a mark where the funicle was attached. So hilum is just a mark where funicle was attached. Clear? Then we have the seed coat, which is divided into two parts, that is testa and tegmen. Outer testa, inner tegmen. Clear? This is all about the dicot seeds and now we have got the monocot seeds. this one. So here in the case of monocots, this is actually the embryonal axis. This is embryonal axis where plumule is present, and this plumule, because the monocots have got just one cotyledon, they have given some extra things like covering of the plumule, that is known as coleoptile. This is covering of the plumule. It is known as coleoptile. This is radicle, and this is the covering of radicle, that is known as coleorhiza. Clear? These terms are very, very important for the exam. Now, to this or near to this embryonal axis, what is present? The cotyledon is present, that is named as scutellum. This is complete cotyledon. Clear? Now, here as I told you, in case of monocots, they will have persistent endosperm. As you can see, this endosperm is very large in size, right? Because it is going to give nutrition to the developing embryo. And they have got this one aileron layer, which is again specific character of monocot seeds. These aileron layer are made up of proteins. Clear? Seed coat fruit wall is clear. This is one endospermic, this is epidermal layer. Okay, and this is the aileron layer, which is present between the endosperm and the coleoptile, and between the scutellum, that is the cotyledon. This scutellum is the single cotyledon found in the monocot seeds. Examples of monocot seeds, as you can see easily, rice is there, then we have wheat. So the grain which we eat is actually the complete seed, and in these seeds the seed coat and fruit wall are very thin, that they remain attached to the seed. The part which we eat in the rice wheat is actually mainly the endosperm, because this cotyledon is very less in amount, mainly endosperm is present, so it is edible part. Seed coat and fruit wall remain attached to the seed, so they are eaten with it. Clear? So this is all about the monocot seeds and dicot seeds. We are left with one point, the examples of the persistent nucellus. One is bell pepper, black pepper, sorry, not bell pepper, black pepper. This is one important example of perisperm. Clear? So this is all about the seed formation in plants, the monocot seeds and the dicot seeds. In the next video, we'll discuss about the fruit formation. So stay tuned, and for that, do hit the bell button, subscribe this channel, and if you like the video, please like it and share your views in the comment section below.